Okay, grade 12, we are still busy with the same topic as yesterday. We are busy looking at the three profit maximization positions of the individual producer under conditions of perfect competition. Yesterday, we looked at a normal profit. Today, we're going to look at the economic profit. This will be on page 20 of your textbook. So if you have your textbook, you open it up on page 20 and you follow in your textbook as I teach. If you don't have a textbook, remember yesterday you would have received your hard copy of notes. So you go to page 20 on your notes. This will serve as your textbook for paper 2. Okay, so just to recap, yesterday, as I said, we spoke about a normal profit. We said a firm will make a normal profit if his total revenue equals his total cost or his average revenue equals his average cost. Okay, and remember we said the normal profit is basically the payment that the entrepreneur pays himself for the work done in the business. Because if he gets nothing, he will close down the business and he will leave the industry to go and work somewhere else. Okay. The second equilibrium position for the individual producer will be an economic profit. Okay, you must also know the different terminology. Economic profit is sometimes also referred to as an abnormal profit, okay, as opposed to the normal profit we did yesterday. Okay, so abnormal profit or a supernormal profit. Now, it's more than a normal profit. Remember, I also did say yesterday, in the short run, an individual producer in the perfect market can make a normal profit or an economic profit or an economic loss. Okay, so we are still busy with short run. The long run we're going to do on another day. Okay, so if we refer to an economic profit, what is an economic profit? Your economic profit is any profit that the entrepreneur makes over and above the normal profit. So when there is an economic profit, this economic profit is the idea that you have in your head about what is a profit. That is economic profit. In future, you are not going to refer to just profits. You're going to say specifically it is an economic profit because we have a normal profit and we also have an economic profit. Right, so the economic profit is the extra profit that the business makes over and above the normal profit. So when there is an economic profit, the entrepreneur will receive his normal profit plus he is entitled to these economic profits as well. Now, when does a business make an economic profit? Your business will make an economic profit if revenue is more than all of the costs. And remember, as I said yesterday, when we refer to costs, we are referring to both explicit and implicit costs. So your explicit costs, we said, are those actual expenditures, money that the business actually really spent. They did an EFT, they paid with a check, they paid cash, but there's a source document to prove that these expenditures took place. Implicit costs is that remuneration that the entrepreneur pays himself. Okay, so the implicit cost is the payment that the entrepreneur pays himself, the normal profit. Your implicit cost basically is his normal profit. Okay, so when a business makes an economic profit, it means its revenue is more than all of those costs. Okay, and as I said, economic profits can also be called a surplus profit, extra profit, or excessive profits. So when the business, remember I said yesterday, each business once a year, they will complete their income statement. And when they do their income statement, they will be able to see if the business was profitable or not. So every entrepreneur, every single month, like he pays his workers a salary, he pays himself his normal profit as well. So throughout the year, the entrepreneur is receiving his normal profit. But at the end of the year, when the business declares a profit, when a profit is made, the entrepreneur is entitled to receive these profits as well. All right, so we say that when he receives economic profits, he actually receives more than what is necessary because he has already received his normal profit. So when a business makes an economic profit, your entrepreneur is basically receiving his normal profit as well as these economic profits. Okay, remember, the entrepreneur, the owner, is entitled to any profit that the business makes. Okay, he can take it or he can push it back into the business, but it is his, it belongs to him. So when an economic profit is being made, the entrepreneur gets his normal profit, but he is also entitled to take the economic profit. Okay, now I did mention that in the short run, an individual producer in the perfect market can make an economic profit, but in the long run, they will only make a normal profit. The reason for this, and this is a separate lesson that we will do sometime in the future, but because when an individual producer makes an economic profit, other entrepreneurs will be attracted and they would want to enter this industry as well. And remember, in the perfect market, there's freedom of entry and exit. Okay, so anybody making economic profits in this industry, other entrepreneurs will see, Yanni and Pity and Kwesi, they're making profits. I also want to make those profits, and they will enter the industry. And then certain things are going to happen that makes these economic profits disappear. But that's a separate lesson for a separate day. Okay, so if we are saying that in order for the business to make an economic profit, basically we are saying that economic profit will be made if my total revenue is bigger than my total cost. So I'm receiving more income than what my cost I'm paying. Or put differently, my average revenue is bigger than my average cost. Always remember, we compare apples with apples and oranges with oranges. If I'm referring to total revenue, it is partnered with total cost. If I'm referring to average revenue, its partner is average cost. Okay. So if my total revenue is bigger than my total cost, then I can make an economic profit. On the graphs, we don't work with totals, we work with averages. So it basically means that my average revenue will be bigger than my average cost. Okay, now when we draw the graph, okay, if we say that average revenue have to be higher than average cost, on a graph, the graph that is higher must be drawn above the graph that is lower. Okay, so if we are saying, remember we said a firm will make an economic profit or loss based on the placement of my average cost curve. So in this case, I want my average cost to be below my average revenue so that my average revenue is higher than the average cost because I want him now to make a profit. Okay, just remember, the average cost has to be below average revenue, specifically at the profit maximization point. Okay, that is your theory for today. I want you to pause this video now to take out your workbook, and then in your workbook, you are going to draw the graph with me when I draw the graph now, and you are also going to copy the calculation when I do the calculation now. Okay, so pause this video now. When we draw the graph, okay, obviously we want to draw our axes. And you label your axes. Now, if your axes aren't labeled, you don't get the marks. This is easy marks for you to get. Okay, your vertical axis is always cost and revenue, in Rand. Cost and revenue in Rand. And your horizontal axis always is your output. Okay, graphs also must have headings. In this case, we are going to draw the individual producer in the perfect market making an economic profit. If your graphs don't have headings, they don't know which graph you are busy drawing. Okay, so your headings is also very, very important. They can't guess if your graph is no economic profit or what. They don't know that you know, unless you tell them. Okay, economic profit. All right, so then we're going to follow our recipe. Now, we have our recipe, you have it in front of you, you take it out and you put it on the desk in front of you. And we start drawing, still perfect market. But now we want to draw this individual producer making an economic profit. So again, step 1. We're going to start with step 1. Step 1, we have to draw demand and average revenue and marginal revenue. Okay? We know in a perfect market, each individual producer is a price taker. Okay, so he cannot change the price. Nothing he does can change the price. So, for example, if the market says the price is 10 Rand, his demand curve will be a horizontal line, a perfectly elastic demand curve. All right, and we know that your demand curve also represents your average revenue curve. And because we know this is a perfect market and he is a price taker and the price is going to be constant, the marginal revenue also equals the price. So step 1 is to draw demand and average revenue and marginal revenue. That is step 1. In the perfect market, it is easy. We draw one perfectly elastic horizontal graph, and that graph will represent demand and average revenue and marginal revenue. Okay, that is done. And as I said, as you draw the graph, immediately you also label your graph, otherwise you forget. And no label, no marks. Right, then we're going to go to step 2. In step 2, we have to add the marginal cost. Okay, we know marginal cost is our Nike swooshy. So when we add the marginal cost, we just do it. Okay, sorry. It's a bit difficult on the computer. There we go. Okay, you just do it and immediately you label your graph. Now you label it, it is marginal cost. Once your marginal cost is there, step 3 is to find my profit maximization point. In the perfect market, this is very easy because there is only one intersection here. Okay, it's not so easy in the monopoly. All right, but your profits are maximized where my marginal cost, blue graph, equals my marginal revenue, the red graph. There where they intersect, we make a bolletjie, and you must make a bolletjie. No bolletjie, no marks. Okay, you make your bolletjie and then you label it point E. Right, for equilibrium, profit maximization or equilibrium. Okay, once we have indicated our profit maximization point, we have to find the price. This is the perfect market, so the price is already there. It's 10. If you forgot to give it a price previously, you give it a price now. And then to find the quantity, remember we go towards your output axis, your horizontal axis. Okay, and again you give it a value. Okay, we're going to make it 100. All right, that is step 3. We have found our profit maximization point and we have indicated our price and quantity. Okay, the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to add the average cost. Okay, now remember, up to this point, all the graphs look exactly the same because it is where we put average cost that is going to make this a profit or a loss or a normal profit. Okay, the placement of average cost is very important. When we draw average cost, remember the shape of average cost is like a smiley, U-shaped. Remember, it has a relationship with marginal cost. Okay, remember my marginal cost always intersects with my average cost, where average cost is at its lowest. And we want this firm now to make an economic profit. So for a profit, we know average revenue must be higher than average cost. Okay, average revenue must be higher than average cost. So when we draw the graph, when we add average cost, in the perfect market, this is easy because my red graph, there's my average revenue. Okay, there's my average revenue. All I need to do now is place my average cost below my average revenue graph. Okay, but remember, specifically, this individual producer must make an economic profit. Its average cost must be below my average revenue, specifically at my profit maximization point. Okay, so it can be higher there and come down, and it can go higher again there. But at point E, my average cost has to be below the average revenue. We want average revenue to be higher so that this guy can make an economic profit. Okay, so when we draw the average cost, you first watch me do it, and then you are going to do it by yourself. Okay, when we draw average cost, okay, remember we're going to go down, 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 down. The minute I touch my marginal cost graph, this must be the lowest point of my average cost. So the minute I touch my marginal cost, I'm going to turn back up. And that is going to be my average cost. All right. So when you draw it, remember it has to be like the smiley. It has to intersect with marginal cost. Now remember, we can't draw it there. Okay? Because it's not intersecting with my marginal cost. It has to intersect with my marginal cost. So you have to aim. Now you go down, down, down. You aim for your marginal cost. The minute you touch the blue one, that's why I say you use different colors. In my case, it's a blue one. When I touch blue, I know, okay, I have to turn up now to make the upper bit of that smiley. And then you label your graph. Okay, pause the video now and you put in your average cost. After this, the last step, we didn't have this with a normal profit, but the last step now is we need to see where is the economic profit. We have to indicate the economic profit on the graph. So once we have added average cost, we need to find the value of average cost. So at my profit maximization point, you'll see the dotted keys is already there. You don't have to redot dotted keys that is already there, okay? But from my profit maximization point, you follow the dotted keys, follow the dotted keys, follow the dotted keys, up to this point where you touch your average cost. Now you make that a bully key, okay? And then you need to find what is the value of my average cost. So you dotted key to the side, okay? And you give it a value. All right. So in other words, from your profit maximization point, dotted key down until you touch your average cost, and then to the side to give the value for average cost. So in this case, we can now see the average revenue, the price is 10 Rand, and the average cost is 8 Rand. Yeah, because at my profit maximization point, this is where my average cost is. So my average cost is 8 Rand. And once we have done that, now we need to shade the area of the profit. Okay, so when we shade the area of the profit, a couple of things that you need to remember is that you have to shade a regular shape. Okay, so it has to be, it depends on how you draw your graph. It is either going to be a rectangle or it's going to be a square. Okay, but it cannot be a rectangle with a pimple on its face or a square with a quarter of the square cut out. Okay, when you shade, watch what I'm doing first. There's my price. Solid line, solid line. There's my dotted keys to go down to average cost. There's my dotted keys to go back to the axis. This is the square that I want to now highlight, okay, or shade. When you do the shading, it's always better to use a highlighter, okay, because otherwise if you use a solid thing, you're going to shade all over your graphs, and then the examiner cannot see the shape of the graph. So the shape of the graph must be visible underneath your shading. Otherwise, shade it very lightly, okay, but I have to see the shape of the graphs underneath your shading. Highlighter is always better, okay. So if we shade now, okay, this is where we are shading, okay. From there, right up, okay, you don't let marginal cost stop you. You're shading all over to all the dotted keys and all these dotted keys all around there. You're going to shade this whole area. Okay, once you've shaded, okay, don't shade outside the lines like I did. Okay, you shade right up. As I said, from the graph, down the dotted keys, up to your average cost, dotted keys to the axis. You don't shade, don't let that graph stop you, you shade past it. Don't let the marginal cost stop you, you shade past it. The dotted lines, that is what is stopping you, okay? And as I said, if you look at this graph now, you'll see it's a regular shape, okay? There's your rectangle. You didn't stop shading there, so then it's a rectangle with a corner cut off, okay? It has to be a regular shape. Don't cut off pieces. If the shading is not correct, you will not get marks for it. And generally the shading, corrected shading, generally will count 2 marks on these graphs. All right, because it is a skill to shade that correctly. Okay, that is what your graph should look like when you are finished. Now we're going to look at the calculations. Okay, I'm going to tell you what kind of different questions they can ask based on this graph that you have now drawn. Okay, so if we just take it to okay, there's the exact same graph that we have drawn now. Okay, we are now going to just look at different questions that they can ask based on this graph. All right. Now, generally, something that they will ask is which market structure is represented in the graph above. Then, obviously, you look for your demand curve. The minute you see your demand curve is horizontal or perfectly elastic, then you know this is a perfect market. They can ask you to give an example of a business that would fall under this market structure. Remember, possible examples for the perfect market that you can use is the JSE. You can use the foreign exchange market, free floating exchange rate system. You can use fresh produce markets, okay? Commodity markets. All right, demand and supply determines the price. They can ask you to define anything. Yeah, there will always be a definition in a dot response question. They can ask you to define marginal cost or average cost, demand, average revenue, marginal revenue, economic profit, perfect market, anything. They can ask you what would be the nature of the product in this market structure. You know it's a perfect market. You know the products are homogeneous. Okay? They can ask you to explain the control. Does this individual producer have control over the price? You have to say no, it doesn't have control over the price. It is a price taker. The price is determined by the market demand, the market supply. There's a variety, never-ending amount of questions they can ask on this. We are going to do a couple data response questions in the next activity so that you can see the different ways that they actually use to ask this. But what is very important is the calculations. All right, they're going to ask you to calculate the total economic profit. Okay, so if you calculate the total economic profit, okay, remember, right, total profit, in order to calculate total profit, we are literally going to take profit. Your calculation is total revenue minus total cost. All right, that is your formula. You're going to take total revenue minus total cost, okay? But do we have total revenue and total cost here? No, we don't. We have to calculate it first. All right, so we are going to take total revenue. Sorry, all right, so in order to calculate total revenue, you should know your formulas, right? Total revenue is price times quantity. Now, everything is based on profit maximization. You're going to see the ones that we are going to do in the activity is more confusing than this one. This one that we have drawn, it only contains the information that we actually need. They can add a whole bunch of other stuff in here to confuse you. Don't let them confuse you. All right, at this point, you need to know my profits are maximized where marginal cost and marginal revenue is equal. That is there at that point. If you need to, you highlight your profit maximization point so that it's clear. You refer to this point only. Okay, so at my profit maximization point, what is my price? I find the price on my demand curve. My demand curve says my price is 10 Rand. At 10 Rand, at profit maximization, what is my quantity? Down, down, down. My output is 100. So what is my total revenue? It is 1,000 Rand. Okay, so now I have my total revenue. Okay, then I also need to calculate my total cost because I don't have my total cost. Okay, when I calculate my total cost, remember in yesterday's lesson I said we cannot calculate it like we did last year. We don't have fixed cost, we don't have variable cost, but we do have average cost. Okay, average cost times quantity is going to give you total cost. Now, this is the formula that you need to know now for total cost. So again, at my profit maximization point, what is the value of my average cost? Down, down, down until I touch my average cost graph. My oh my average cost is 8 Rand. What is my profit maximizing quantity? It is 100. So in other words, my total cost is 800 Rand. Okay, and once I have that information, I can proceed to calculate the total economic profit. My total revenue, we said it is 1,000. My total cost, we said is 800. And if I do that, my profit will be 200 Rand. Okay, and this will be worth 4 marks. Okay, but there's a different way to also do this. Okay, we can also do it in the following way. All right, and you're going to copy both. All right, I want you to copy both, and then you are going to decide which one you prefer to use. Okay, the second method that I'm going to show you now, it has certain risks attached. Okay, but okay, it doesn't matter. You choose the one that suits you the best. What we can do is we can also calculate economic profit or loss per unit. All right, here we calculated the total economic profit. They are asking you what is the total economic profit. So total economic profit would be 200. All right, now if we go and we do economic profit or loss per unit. Per unit, we are referring to averages. Okay, so now what we are going to say is average revenue minus average cost. All right, so average revenue, because average revenue is what we receive per unit, and average cost is what we are paying per unit. And if we do that, what is my average revenue? Again, at profit maximization point. So at my profit maximization point, what is my average revenue? My average revenue is in red. So my average revenue is 10 Rand. It's the price. Average revenue equals the price. Okay? So I'm receiving 10 Rand for every unit that I'm selling. what does it cost me to produce every unit? Again, at profit maximization, what is my average cost? Down, down, down. There until I touch average cost. My average cost is 8 Rand. So I am making 2 Rand profit per unit. Okay. You have to look at what they're asking. Okay. If they are asking what is the total economic profit, you're not making 2 Rand profit in total. You are getting 2 Rand profit for every article that you are selling. Okay, so if you stop here, if you do it in this way and you stop at this point, you're only going to get 2 out of the 4 marks. Because that you have calculated there now, it is only economic profit per unit. So then you have to calculate now total economic profit, and that is going to be economic profit per unit times by your quantity. I am not just selling one, né? So my economic profit per unit is 2 Rand. For every unit, every little article we are selling, we are making 2 Rand profit. But how many am I selling? I'm not just selling one. I'm selling at my profit maximization point. I'm selling 100. So 2 times 100 is also going to give me a total economic profit of 200 Rand. Okay, that is just an alternative way to do it. Okay, but what you must remember, it doesn't matter how you do it. If you use this method or if you use this method, it doesn't matter because the answer is exactly the same. Only thing that you must remember in the second method is when you've done this calculation, you are not yet finished. You are only halfway there. You must remember to add in the second step. And whenever you do calculations, remember you have to show your calculations. So you have to write your formula and then you substitute and then you calculate. Okay? If you don't show your calculations, you do not get the full marks. Okay? Take my word for it. Don't believe me, and you're going to suffer the consequences at the end of the year. Show all calculations. They're not going to give you 4 marks if you just say, it's 200 Rand. Even though it's correct, you're going to get 1 out of 4. You've thrown away 75% of the marks, even though your answer is correct. That is just the way that they mark, okay? So give them what they want, and you will get the marks that you want. Okay, that is the end of today's lesson. Right now, before the end of this period, again, you are going to show me pictures. You're either going to send me your pictures over WhatsApp, your photos, or you're going to upload it to Teams. But before the start of the next period, I want to see the graph that you have drawn with me, this one, that you have drawn with me, and I want to see where you have written down the calculations with your graph. So both the graph and the calculations, I want to see proof that you have done this. Okay, then you can enjoy your little break now before the next period, and I will see you tomorrow.